Welcome back to Lost Test Channel. My name is Anton Vieltsin. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the Southern District of California, here in San Diego. Today we're going to discuss a case dealing with a licensed attorney who devised and ran a criminal adoption scheme. In this video, we're discussing United States versus Petersen, which is a criminal case that was published just a few days ago this year in 2022, and it is an 8th Circuit Court of Appeals case. So here's what happened. Mr. Petersen was a licensed attorney, and he devised and ran a criminal adoption scheme. Here's how the scheme looked like. He induced pregnant women to travel from Marshall Islands, and later, once they're in the United States, they would give up their infants for adoption. And of course, he made money off of these adoptions. He instructed these women to lie about the nature of their travel to the immigration authorities. And once they lied, that created false documents that were later filed with the immigration court. Something for you to note. Individuals from Marshall Islands are allowed to enter the United States without a visa as non-immigrants, but not for the purpose of giving up their kids for adoption. That is excluded under our immigration laws. Mr. Petersen was charged and later pled guilty to 8 U.S.C. 1324, which is a section that I've described in my other videos, and I encourage you to click on some of those videos and watch them. Before I've discussed how 8 U.S.C. 1324 works, what exactly the crime is defined under this section, and how the guidelines are calculated if you're charged with 1324. I will link one of those videos here above, and I encourage you to click on it and watch it. Under the sentencing guidelines, Mr. Petersen was looking at 37 to 46 months. Now, these are the sentencing guidelines. They're just that. They're guidelines. They're not mandatory. They're only advisory, meaning that the sentencing judge can later sentence you to the time that's more or less than what the guidelines call for. And in this situation, once Mr. Petersen was at the sentencing hearing, the district judge sentenced him to 74 months and $100,000 worth of fines. So here's something you realize. 74 months. That is almost double what the guidelines said, 37 to 46 months. But the district judge is allowed to do that. Under most of our plea agreements in this district, we agree that the sentencing judge makes the ultimate decision in terms of sentencing. And really, even if you went to trial and lost at that trial, the sentencing guidelines would still only be advisory. The judge makes the final decision. Mr. Petersen appeals his sentence as substantively unreasonable. The appellate court notes that it is an unusual case where the appellate court reverses the district court as the sentence being substantively unreasonable. It is a very rare situation. Here are the 3 times when the sentence would be deemed inappropriate and unreasonable. Number 1, if the district court failed to consider a relevant factor that should have received a significant weight. Number 2, if the district court gave significant weight to an improper or irrelevant factor. Or finally, if the district court considers only the appropriate factors, but in weighing those factors, commits a clear error of judgment. Mr. Petersen appeals this 3rd factor. He says that the court, when weighing the factors, made an inappropriate finding. The first thing is what he says is that when the court did an upward variance or upward departure, it was double counting. What do I mean by that? Mr. Petersen says that he received more time simply because he had an aggravating role. But if we look at the chapter 3B under sentencing guidelines, that chapter already addresses mitigating an aggravating role. So if he received additional levels based on this chapter, why would the court then later give him even more time for his role? Now the appellate court says, not so fast. The guidelines fail to adequately represent Mr. Petersen's role as an attorney, public official, and a leader and organizer of this crime. So it is not double counting, and in fact, the district court is permitted to go above the guidelines if it thinks that the levels are not enough to account for the fact that he was the one who organized this crime and he was an individual of power. He was an attorney. The second argument is that there was an unwarranted discussion about unwarranted disparities. Meaning when the sentencing judge looks at your case, in this situation, he compared and contrasted Mr. Petersen to other similarly situated offenders. And Mr. Petersen says that that's inappropriate. But the Court of Appeals reminds us that that's exactly what the district court really should do. Not only does the district court punishes you and looks at the factors relevant to you, but similarly situated defendants should receive similar sentences. That just makes sense. You shouldn't have one individual get significantly more time if the factors are the same. But in this case, the factors are not the same. Because again, he's an attorney and he was a leader and organizer of this scheme. The Court of Appeals said that it was proper for the district court to find him as uniquely situated. He was somebody different than we usually see under Section 1324. And in fact, this case is a unique case. It is different from what we normally see as individuals bringing people over the border and driving them throughout the country. This is somewhat different. It is an adoption scheme. Hopefully you now understand how aggravating and mitigating role works. What should you take away from this case? Well, that the sentencing guidelines are not mandatory. They're advisory. The judge can give you more or less time than what the sentencing guidelines call for. What does that mean? It means that you should hire an attorney that's not only experienced in criminal law, but one who's familiar with every judge in his district. Because with me, by the time we're at sentencing, there are no surprises. I tell my clients what to expect with a particular judge by the time we're at sentencing. Because some judges go way below the guidelines, some go within the guidelines, and some judges routinely go above the guidelines. So it is better for you to have somebody on your side who knows and has experience with that particular judge. If you enjoyed this video, please click like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so next time I post, you'll be first to know.